we gonna do? We're gonna do what else to do.
What's up, food geeks? Welcome back to another episode of Nikki Talks Food. I am your host, Nikki Pettineo. This is a podcast about food, all things food related, and this week we do have a guest. But first, I want to tell you about a story that is full of grit, passion, and unyielding commitment to excellence. And I first learned about Eugenie Brazier, who was a famous chef in Lyon, France, around the 1930s. And I first learned about her and her excellence when I watched an episode of Anthony Bourdain's show Parts Unknown, and it is the episode on Lyon, France. You have to watch it. It is pretty old. You can probably find it on, I don't know if you can find it on Netflix, but you can probably find it on Prime, maybe Netflix, I'm not sure. But it's definitely worth watching. Danielle Baloud is also in that episode. It's all about Lyon, France, which is noted as oftentimes it's noted as the culinary capital of the world. So if you're a foodie, you should definitely watch that episode. But in that episode, Anthony Bourdain goes over the culinary family tree. And, when Anthony Bourdain passed away, I cried because when I taught culinary school, I used to use his Parts Unknown for educational purposes. Like, for instance, that episode in Lyon, France, I would show to my garde manger class, which is all about cold foods, and there's stuff about sausage making and all that in the episode. And also the culinary family tree, which goes over Chef Eugenie Brazier. And she was a hearty woman, and the things that she went through and the accomplishments that she made were incredible, and I wanted to share them with you. So let's explore the extraordinary life of Chef Eugenie Brazier, a trailblazer who forever changed the landscape of French cuisine. Born June 12, 1895, that's a long time ago, in a small village near Lyon, Eugenie Brazier grew up on a humble farm. She was used to fresh seasonal vegetables, and that's how people ate back in the day. They grew their own food, they ate seasonal vegetables, and then whatever they couldn't eat, they usually canned or preserved. So she grew up on a farm. She was not rich or anything. She was just a farm girl. But little did everybody know, she would one day become the first woman to earn 3 Michelin stars twice. Eugenie's culinary journey began modestly. After losing her mother at an early age, she left home to work as a nanny. During this time, she became an unwed mother. I think she was 19 at the time. And back in those days, it was frowned upon. Her experience as an unwed mother led her to work as a servant for a family. And what she did then was trial by fire. She would cook for the family, and she learned how to make these complicated sauces, but then understood, it just takes practice. She mastered hollandaise, which is notoriously a difficult sauce to make, but she understood that if I try, I can do it. So the family really loved her work. She was a nanny. She was also, the cook and basic domestic help. And she found that she really had a passion for cooking. So she took the leap, and around the end of the First World War, Eugenie began working in the women-only kitchen of Françoise Filou at Le Bistrot Filou. Françoise was a woman known for her temperamental and demanding nature. La Mère Filou. La Mère means the mother. So the mother Filou is what they called her. That was the chef of the women-only kitchen. La Mère Filou trained Eugenie to create iconic dishes, including quenelles au gratin with crayfish butter, artichoke hearts with truffled foie gras, and volet demi-dule, which is truffled chicken in half mourning. Last dish, with truffle slices tucked under the chicken skin, became one of Eugenie's signature offerings. From Filou's kitchen, Eugenie moved to the Brasserie des Dragons in Lyon. Sorry for my horrible French accent, but I'm doing my best. By 1921, at just 26 years old, she opened her first restaurant, La Mère Brazier. So La Mère would be the mother Brazier, at 12 Rue Royale in Lyon. Despite limited capital, I think I read that she had 12,000 francs, which would be the equivalent of like $9,000 in euro in these days, in modern times. She built her business with the help of suppliers and advice from her former employer. Her partner Pierre worked as a chauffeur during the day and supported her at the restaurant at night. Her partner meaning her life partner. He supported her at night. Initially, the restaurant could only seat 15 diners. You gotta start small. But soon it expanded to include multiple dining rooms and private salons. Le Mère Brazier quickly became a sensation. After the death of Francois Filou, Eugenie was hailed as the culinary successor. She gained national attention when a motor oil company director invited her to cater a car rally picnic and later an annual banquet in Paris. Her dishes, particularly the truffle chicken and quenelles, became renowned across France. By the 1920s, chefs nationwide were replicating her creations, and Le Mère Brazier's reputation soared. By 1933, Eugenie achieved a milestone that no chef, male or female, had ever accomplished before. She earned 3 Michelin stars for Le Mère Brazier and another 3 stars for her second restaurant nestled in the alpine countryside of Col de la Lure. At Col, Eugenie created a tranquil dining retreat with a seasonal menu featuring simpler yet exquisite dishes. The 2 restaurants solidified her place as a titan of French cuisine. When World War II ended, Eugenie celebrated with a grand feast at Col de la Lure, and her restaurant regained their pre-war eminence. Over the years, she mentored young chefs, listen to this, including Paul Bocuse. And if you don't know who Paul Bocuse is, you need to look him up. I'll give you a quick little... Have you ever heard of the award, the Bocuse d'Or, which is like the gold medal of Bocuse? Paul Bocuse is... he's no longer with us, I believe. Let's see. Is Paul Bocuse still alive? I believe he's no longer with us. Yeah, he died in 2018. He is known as Monsieur Paul, and he is renowned as one of the best chefs that have ever lived. So she trained him. Somebody else you might know, Daniel Boulud, trained under Eugenie Brazier. And so she is part of the culinary family tree, and she is a branch high up. This is a woman who was born on a farm, had a child during a time where it was frowned upon that she was an unwed mother at 18 years old, started working in domestic help as a domestic servant, then continued to understand she had a passion deep down inside. Never went to school for any of this stuff, just taught herself, read the books. You know, there's at that time that Eugenie would have been cooking, there would have been Antonin Carême, and also Auguste Escoffier. There's Auguste Escoffier has a Le Guide Culinaire, which has 5,000 recipes in it. And if you learn the mother sauces, the classical techniques, you can make anything out of that book. So that's what she did. She basically taught herself. She was taught under the guidance of another female chef who basically brought her under her wing. It wasn't easy. She was definitely yelled at a lot, probably mistreated by her boss. But she persevered, kept going, understood that she had a passion deep, deep down inside, and she wanted to cook for people. And she did. And she opened 2 restaurants. And she was the most decorated chef ever for her time. And she trained several of the most talented and well-regarded chefs ever in modern history. But you probably haven't heard of her until now. And so I'm happy to share that with you. I'm so happy to share her story with you. I'm going to try and do some more stories on chefs, not necessarily just female chefs, but just chefs that you may not have heard of, and try and, talk to you guys about the culinary family tree. And, obviously I'm aware that this is a very European version of the culinary family tree, and it does not encompass world cuisine. And I understand that. But many, many cultures look to France for the gold standard of cooking, classically. So we'll get to so many other different types of cuisine. So I think I'll feature I'll feature chefs here and there. So you guys have, maybe it'll be a Jeopardy question, and you'll be like, oh, I know who. I don't know what we'll call this segment. I don't know, but we'll do it. So my guest today is Nicole Layog. She is a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for many, many years, and I'm really excited for her to tell you guys her story. We've known each other for a long time, like I said, and so we have a good rapport when we're talking. So I'd like to have her back on the show But this interview was over an hour long, so I'm going to break it into 2 different episodes. So we'll do part 1, and then the following week, part 2. Nicole is not only a chef on private yachts, but she also works as a private chef, and she was cast on Big Brother season 24. It was a tumultuous season for her. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. She, I think she would be great on, what are those 2 shows? House of Villains or Traitors. Please cast Nicole. She would be awesome on that. But she got a lot of backlash for, how she was on the show. But I want you to see the side that I see in Nicole. Nicole is a fantastic person. She is she's an amazing chef. She has a lot of advice for people that are looking to get into the yachting industry. So sit back and get ready to listen to part 1 of my interview with Chef Nicole Layog. Today I have with me my guest, Nicole Layog, who's not only an amazing personal chef who works in the yachting industry, but she's also a Big Brother 24 alumni. Nicole, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me on the pod, talking to me about food, yachting, and Big Brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I feel like we've been trying to schedule this and make this work for the longest time. So here we are. I'm glad that you have me on. I'm so excited. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Nicole and I have been friends for, I don't know, more than a decade. We've known each other from Fort Lauderdale, just being out, same friends and stuff like that. So it's been many, many years, and I appreciate you coming on and hanging out with me. But I wanted to, I'm dying to know how the Fort Lauderdale Food Festival was, because that sounds really, really fun, and how people can know about it for next year, or if it's still going on, or what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So Visit Lauderdale Food and Wine Fest has been going on now for about 8 years, and they're probably going to shoot me in the foot for quoting the time frame that they've been having it go on for. Basically, proceeds go to Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital.
Oh, nice.
And they do a week long full of events. Kickoff starts on a Monday night, and they literally have 30 events going on at one time for 7 days. And what's really amazing is that they're highlighting chefs all around Fort Lauderdale. They're even bringing chefs from out of state. For instance, I was part of the onboarding of all the chefs coming to do the barbecue battle. And what was really cool was that, we had a couple guys coming out there who were doing some overnight smoke. And it was basically just the most awesome event of like all these chefs coming collectively together to smoke and grill and barbecue. And some of the food I had was actually all the food I had was phenomenal.
Yeah.
They also do what is called a grand tasting. And when they do that event, they have like 5,000 people coming out right off of Las Olas and A1A. And they're doing demos, they're doing tastings, but it's just one big party by the beach. And then they also offer a community event that Sunday where they open it to the public and a lot of people come out. And then they also do a private event, which this year they did a beachside brunch, which was amazing. I got to cook with one of the food truck pizza guys and slung pizzas all day and served up about 500 people. So that was pretty amazing. But yeah, tickets will probably go on sale in the next 2 weeks. They usually sell out by the middle of the summer. Again, it's Visit Lauderdale Food and Wine Fest, and it's for a good cause. It goes to Joe DiMaggio's Children's Hospital, and they're doing a really great thing. So check it out.
I'll put the link in the description for where everybody can find out more information and tickets in that. And my mom actually worked at that hospital where the Joe DiMaggio Children's Hospital is at, and it is a big, huge facility, and fantastic for, if a kid has something wrong with them, they treat them wonderfully, and they have like it's very nice place to go. It's not scary, so that's a great cause. So I'm super happy for that. That is really, really cool. And
it's pretty amazing. Like most of these, all of these chefs are coming out and volunteering their time. I cooked with one of the local restaurants on kickoff night at Heritage, and none of us work there. We all were basically just there doing prep, helping Chef Reno plate an amazing, dinner, and it was just phenomenal. And the people that come out, I mean, they're just so giving. Everybody's donating money. Everybody's there for a good cause. And,
it's a good time of
every
year too.
dinner, it's a great time of year. I mean, it was a bit windy. One of the nights we had some rain at the barbecue on the beach, but you know what? Nobody cared. People still showed up, rain or shine. Last year when I was doing a demo, I'm on stage. The moment my demo started, it just started downpouring. It was just people are like in their ponchos, under their umbrellas. I mean, people are just like huddled under jackets. Like, it's awesome because, obviously for a good cause, everybody's willing to come out, and who cares,
keeps it fresh, keeps it spicy.
And apparently now it's who cares if it's snowing or raining. So we're dealing with that in Florida.
Yeah, so, it's 3-4 inches in Tallahassee. It's wild. The snow. It's
we like South Florida where the skies are gloomy and gray and there's no snow falling down.
Yeah. What a fun thing. I love that you continue to work with other chefs, and in my opinion, it helps you to never stop learning. Like when you work with like a chef that's like, oh, my thing is pizza, I just do pizza. Well, you're gonna pick up how this guy shapes his pizza, how he ferments his dough, how he, all the cool things that he does. And then that just is in your toolbox, your repertoire. So, I just love the idea of never stop learning. And if you have the opportunity to go out and work with a chef, I just love that you are not like, well, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be a helper. I want to be, it is a great way to continue to just have tools in your toolbox.
Well, for me, it's one of those things too, where I'm still green in this industry. I've only been cooking it's 11 years now. And so for me, it's
okay. You're not that green.
It's one of those things where, say that again.
I said, you're not that green. Come on. 11 years is a long time.
Well, I mean, to me it is, because I'm looking at some of these chefs. I'm looking at you. I mean, I'm going to say it over and over again. You're one of my mentors, and you've been in the game for a very long time. And I learned so much from you. I still am learning from you. And I feel like, how am I supposed to be fully immersed into, like, is that the right word? Immersed?
Yeah,
you
just immersed. Yeah, you just never stop learning.
Immerse
immerse yourself into.
Yeah.
Oh, I will.
So listen, I did not do well in school.
Me neither.
No, how else am I going to fully dive into this career and really love what I do if I'm not learning how to do everything? I'm not saying I'm the greatest. I think that I'm a great chef, and I think that I've definitely worked my way to a position where I can rock it out in a kitchen. I can walk into a kitchen and learn something, or walk into a kitchen and someone can ask me to do something. I'm like, yeah, no problem. But I'm always learning. That's the best part of this job, is that there's always something new. There's always a different cuisine that I know nothing about. There's always a technique that I know nothing about. But what's really amazing is, working in yachting, I get to implement all of those skills within a 7-day period. We're talking like every cuisine, every technique, every genre of food. I'm not classically trained. I went to culinary school for maybe a year and a half, but I learned everything else on the job. And, getting my ass handed to me and learning from other chefs and learning from other mentors. It's all homework. It's always, there's always homework to be done, and there's always something to be able to be taught. So yeah, I love it.
Trial by fire, as they say.
Right.
And that's sometimes the best way to learn your craft. So let's talk about, let's backtrack a little bit. We'll talk about, how you got into so first of all, you had a previous career to being a chef, and you were you were in the Broward Sheriff's Office. You were a detective.
Yes.
And that's when I met you, Detective Nicole.
Yeah, that's exactly when you met me. I actually feel like right before I became detective, because pretty sure you moved away from Fort Lauderdale before I even started going to culinary school. But
Yeah, probably.
you were one of those inspirations as to why I went to culinary school.
Oh, wow.
I went to visit your restaurant at some point, and my ex-wife was in the wine business, and so
Mm-hmm.
we used to eat at any and every restaurant in and around Fort Lauderdale, Miami, Palm Beach, and your restaurant was one of the ones that I've been to. And I was like, man, I'm like, when you're eating food, you're like, I think I can do that, or I think I could do something similar. And,
Yeah.
I started experimenting. And then eventually I signed up for culinary school while I was a police officer. And so I started driving down to Miami Culinary Institute when
Yeah.
Miami-Dade was having their inaugural culinary school.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great, but then I got promoted to detective. And so, there was that dream of becoming a cop and becoming a detective that was also taking place at the same time of me learning how to cook or trying to figure out if that was something that I wanted to do. And it turned from a dream into reality. And so here we are.
Yeah, so that must have been, kind of like a scary time, like exciting and also scary. Exciting because you're like you're doing this thing that is, where obviously you have a real passion for it. But then also leaving the safety of, well, I mean, at times you weren't safe as a detective, but so maybe that had a hand in why you wanted to switch careers. But the safety of having a pension and the paycheck and all that kind of stuff. Like what was the thing that made you take the final leap to say, okay, I'm gonna take this career cooking seriously?
Honestly, there's actually like a culmination of things. I was married to somebody who was a dream pusher, and she really wanted me to go after things in my life that I never had the opportunity to go after in the past because I just didn't have the chance to, or I was always set one track mind. Being a cop, you have to be a cop, you have to be you have to stay in the career for 25 years, you have your
Mm-hmm.
pension, you have to do all these things. And she pushed that side of me. She was like, why do you have to stick with one career? Why do you have to stick with one thing? And, obviously she's not my wife anymore. We're exes, and so
Mm-hmm.
we're divorced. But, that's one part of that marriage that was fantastic, was that
Yeah.
she believed in me because she did. And because of that, I started believing in myself more.
Yeah.
I just stopped loving the job. I stopped loving the job of being a cop. And, there were so many factors in that. More
Mm-hmm.
cops were being killed at that time. Um, I also was contemplating with my ex about starting a family, and did I want to start a family while being a police officer?
Mm-hmm.
But I also knew that if I was going to switch careers, we couldn't stay in Florida. And I wanted to be able to explore that without having something to fall back on. And so
Yeah.
I knew that if we stayed in Florida, that I could eventually go back to being a cop if things didn't work out and if I failed. And we both know that when you take that leap into the culinary industry,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, I started out as a dishwasher, I started out as a butcher, I started out making $11 an hour at Whole Foods from making $75,000 a year
Yeah.
as a detective. There was a lot of struggle. I mean, I went through a divorce. I went
Yeah.
through, there were many life changes that went on that could have made me quit completely and go back to law enforcement because it was a security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, yeah, I mean, it just the way it all happened and the way it all fell into place was she had a job and a career that allowed her to move across the country. And we decided, all right, well, there's no better time than now.
Mm-hmm.
Packed up the dogs, sold the house. Um, and yeah, the rest is history. That was
Yeah.
back in 2014, and now we're into 2025. It's been 11 years, and it's
Yeah.
the best journey that I could have ever have asked for.
Was brave. It's brave. And you know, um do you feel like your passion drove you some, like you were like, this is, I just feel like I just have a calling here? Because it feels like when you tell the story, it feels like almost like a calling.
It was definitely a calling. I mean, I mean, for those who have gone to culinary school, you either love it or you're like, what am I doing? Like, this
Yeah.
is, you're learning about mother sauces and how to batonnet a potato and what is a julienne. And you're like, why is this important?
Yeah.
And it's not even that. Like, that's just like, to me, that stuff was so exciting because I was just like, oh my God, like, this is so amazing. Like, I mean, I would go home every night and study. And I was like this little kid, like at the age of, I think I was like 31 or 32.
Yeah.
I was getting straight A's. Like, I was like, I'm in college. I never really went to college. And here we are. And I'm like, this is awesome. And I loved it. And I fell in love with it. And I was really good. And we would have dinner parties. We would cook for our friends. I mean, I was doing things that like I never thought were possible. And I was like, wow, like I really do have a gift. And I was like, this is something I can definitely see myself doing for the rest of my life and making it a career. And it just gives back every time. Every time I finish a charter, every time I finish a job, every time I cook for a client, at the end of every job, it is confirmation that I am doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So
that's it. That's all you need. That's it. That's all you need to know, really. I mean, I feel the same way. It's like, sometimes, I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing with my life? But then I teach a class and I really enjoy cooking for people, and they enjoy eating and they get all happy and I get all happy, and then I'm like, yeah, this is what I do.
yeah. Yeah. It's wild too, because you don't even realize, well, I know it now, but the best is when you don't realize like how focused and how driven you are in the middle of your career. So, I mean, for me, it's anytime I pick up a knife, anytime I'm over, a skillet or a pan or a grill or anything, I've noticed it more lately, but like nothing else matters when I'm cooking. Nothing else is factoring into what I'm doing except for what I'm putting on a plate, like the client, what they're asking for, pleasing them. I mean, you and I both know working in yachting, you're pleasing different palates all the time. And so, I know people sometimes frown upon private chefs and yacht chefs because we're not working in a restaurant. We're not working on a line. And it's like, screw you, like come and do my job.
Yeah.
And what I've been getting recently is a lot of applause from chefs that I've been talking to, because they're like, holy shit. They're like, what are you doing? Like, because then they ask, they're like, so what are your dishes like? Like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, we just did a dinner for 61 people on Monday. There were 7 of us in the kitchen. I'm doing that same exact dinner.
Yeah, by yourself.
For 9 people. Yeah. Plus cooking a different meal for 5 other people by myself. So every element that's going on every dish. You're in charge of one element. This guy's in charge of one element. That guy's in charge of one element. But when you're on a yacht, you're in charge of all 10 elements that you're putting on.
Right. On yachting, it's just one chef typically. I was the sous chef on so there was 2 of us. But still there's only a certain amount of hands, plus also space, plus also lack of ability to get ingredients sometimes, plus also space in your fridge, equipment. Tell us about the equipment you just dealt with, because I think it's like this is real life. Like people like don't understand, like when they go, oh, you're like below jet, it's yachting like below deck, and it's like it's a cute question, but no, it's not. Below Deck is a TV show. And they dump their crew, and they hire a whole new crew every season, and the boat stays in the same spot. I mean, one day we'd be in Turkey, the next day we'd be in Greece, but I think they have to do that for filming purposes. But the point is that it's wildly unsafe to hire an entire new crew every single time you go out for season. There's crew members you don't see on Below Deck that are like the actual first mate. You don't see the chief engineer. Those are all part of the crew as well, but you don't see them on Below Deck. But
Right.
I also noticed that they have rationale ovens, like the nicest oven possible on below deck.
Like
on these,
the best of the
but that's
best
not real.
quality product.
Yeah.
Like we're talking like they have things in their galley that even a restaurant kitchen doesn't have.
Yeah.
We're talking it's
unrealistic.
Unrealistic. I was going to say unfair, but also unfair because people think that my life is luxurious like it is on below deck. But, starting from beginning to end, I got a call on a Wednesday. One of the brokers was like, hey, listen, this chef left the boat today and they're starting a charter in 48 hours.
Yeah.
Is there any way that you're available? And I'm like, well, I'm at Epcot. I'm drinking around the world.
Yeah.
I'm 2 mimosas in France. Like, when do you need me?
Yeah.
And so after talking to the captain, and she forewarned me, broker forewarned me. She's like, listen, this galley's really small. We're not really sure if it's up to charter conditions, but we need you. We need your help. Like, is this something that you think you can attack? After talking to the captain, he took some pictures and I was like, of course, trying to be hero. Oh yeah, I can make anything work. I was, obviously 2 drinks in and I was just like, sure, I can cook with my eyes closed on that one. Well, realistic. I get there. So that was at 11 a.m. By Thursday at 7 a.m., I was on a plane to St. Thomas. And so I arrive in St. Thomas, get to the boat, reality of that kitchen, quarter sheet tray. So we're talking...
Not a half sheet tray. We're talking a quarter.
Okay,
yeah.
This is a half sheet
That's
tray.
That's a half. So half of that.
So half of this.
Yeah.
And only 2 of them were allowed in that oven.
And how many people? You had 9 guests?
9 guests. So first charter was 5 guests plus 5 crew.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, there was a 32-hour turnover from when I arrived in St. Thomas to when guests were coming on board. So then they were there for 7 days. And so after they left, we had a 30-hour turnaround, maybe 48 hours. I don't remember. 9 guests arrive. I have somebody with a severe dairy, nut, and and dairy, nut, and what else? It doesn't matter because I had to make sure that I didn't cross-contaminate anything.
Yeah.
So now not only do I have to cook separate meals for now 3 sets of people, it's becoming a problem. So now we're realizing, okay, this galley is not set for anything larger than a family of 4 or 5. Yeah. And when you have this image in your head that you might almost kill somebody because of their allergies and that you start losing your mind a little bit. And so I was on this yacht for 20 days total. 18 of those days, there were guests on board.
Jeez.
On the 17th night, I'm in the middle of dinner service and the generators go. Now, mind you, this has been happening the entire time. So we're talking from first charter to second charter, generators are going out. There's not enough space. I brought my own silverware because they didn't have enough on the yacht. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
This is just hearsay. The previous chef apparently was supposed to order all the provisions as far as proteins were concerned. Nothing was ordered. I'm frantically ordering. So now we're paying double to get product in because if anybody knows what it's like to shop in St. Thomas, you're screwed because on an island like St. Thomas, they only get produce once a month. Yeah. So you might get lucky and get produce on the day that they arrive, but then when you have to do a turnaround for another yacht or another charter, you're now getting 2-week-old produce. Yeah. That is rotting as you're literally bringing it onto the boat. So
this is real life, this is
these factors of I literally put 4 packages of strawberries in the refrigerator and literally in 2 days
they're gone.
Gone.
gone rotted.
Absolutely
Like
gone.
they're just like, strawberries do not last long, especially because
Right.
they don't grow in St. Thomas. So by the time it gets there, like it's
I've
already half
I've
gone.
seen I've seen comments online
Mm-hmm.
where some of these yacht chefs will, plate like a breakfast platter and they'll
Uh-huh.
plate like a fruit platter. And people are commenting like, "Oh, great fruit platter. All that's on there is pineapple and grapes." Hey, haters, do you
Yeah.
realize that that's probably the only fruit or
Yeah.
produce that that chef had access to? And that is what I learned on this trip, was that the reality is like things will dwindle very fast. And
Yeah.
just because you're there, and again, people don't realize like these guests are paying for the food.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're only allotting a certain amount of money to pay for what they're purchasing, we can't just like spend all this crazy amount of money to get whatever products they want.
Yeah.
Not everybody is able to use these provisioners that are flying stuff out to the boat that's
Mm-hmm.
costing $5,000 or $6,000
Yeah.
extra just so you can get some avocados. Like, it's just so wild. I mean, that right there, I learned a lot in the last month,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just so wild because not everything is accessible and not everything is easy to obtain. I mean, it's just sad, it's sad when you want to put forth some amazing plates and product and you
Yeah.
can't because
Your hands are
you're
tied.
just dealt a shitty hand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. A lot of people don't understand that's what it is. And it's not like you delivered the boat from one place to another. Because what we would do sometimes
Right.
is stock up in one eh, country because we knew they
Right.
had better XYZ, and then we'd bring it to the next country. Well, if
Yeah.
you are flown to the boat, you meet it there in a certain country or territory, then you're just bound by what they have there. So yeah, it's it I you made it though. You made it out alive. Look at you.
I made it. We made it. It was fantastic. I mean, it was great. Like, the
Yeah.
abilities of. I'm just happy that it was me. I'm not saying that I'm the best yacht chef there is, but if somebody, and this is where I agree
Some
with you that
freaking
I'm not
jabroni.
green anymore, but if
Hmm.
it was somebody who was green in the yachting
Yeah,
industry, they
they
would
would have
have,
shit the bed.
they either would have shit the bed or they would have walked off. And
Yeah.
I've heard of chefs walking off. I
Yeah.
heard of chefs just saying, screw this. And I doubt the chef is watching this that I relieved who left the boat, but I will say, dude, I don't blame you, because
Yeah.
apparently he had been complaining from the day that he got on the boat about the conditions,
Hmm.
and for lack of better words, not charter ready. It just wasn't charter ready. And, it sucks
Yeah.
because these brokers are busting their asses to make money. These
Hmm.
brokers have a business to run. These brokers are our lifeline. They are the reason why we make money. These
Yeah.
brokers are the reason why I have had money in my pocket for the last 6 months. And I feel like, try so hard, but if they're selling something that they have no idea, I mean, that falls back on the owners, and it falls back,
Yeah.
on it sucks.
It sucks. It's hard to work in that kind of condition. But okay, so let's talk about how someone can get started in the yachting industry, because this is something that I like to talk about. I didn't know. I mean, growing up in Fort Lauderdale, I didn't know that it was the yachting capital of the world until I
Neither did
was like
I.
30, and then I ended up getting on a boat and all that kind of stuff. So what is the path to get onto what is the first thing somebody who's interested in doing that should do?
Well, obviously have a mentor like Nikki, and
Reach out.
reach out and tell her that I was basically making no money, working 3 kitchen jobs in
Oh yeah.
Denver, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, what do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
And you were like, well, I've got some advice for you. You need to pack your bags and move back to Fort Lauderdale,
Yeah.
and I think you should get into yachting. And so that's exactly what I did. First things first, though, is to get into yachting, you need to have a few certifications
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be on the water. And one of those things is getting your STCW. It's basically your week-long crash course in the industry in maritime law and
Mm-hmm.
learning the ins and outs of water safety when it comes, or fire safety when it comes to being on a boat and being in the water, food safety, so food handling, and you're basically just learning the beginning stages of what it would take for you to be able to be on a vessel.
Yes, STCW 95, and I'll put the link in the description for anybody who wants to check that out. But yeah, it's a week-long thing. You learn how to fight fires, because if you're on a floating match, there is no one coming to save you, and so you get the full fire gear on. You learn how to breathe with the regulator on. You shoot the hose, that kind of stuff. So, and you learn survival stuff, like they show you how to use the location satellite thingies. If it gets wet, then then the Coast Guard, wherever you're at, is going to come, that kind of stuff. So
clearly, Nikki and I have not recently taken our STCW. Otherwise, we would be able to give you the proper terminology for all of this. Because at the end of the week of your class, you have to take an exam.
You do. You have to take an exam. I actually found the jump drive that has all my stuff on it. But anyway, so you do that, and you get an ENG1, which is like a health exam, and some creepy doctor in Fort Lauderdale just gives you, he goes up in the back room and he goes, "Can you hear me?" And snaps near your ears and, tells you to read an eye chart, and it gives you the freaking certification. And then for chefs, do they need, so when I was in yachting, we didn't need like a certification for food, but there's a new thing, or I say new, but it's in the last decade. So
yeah, so there are 2 different levels of safety for food safety. It's basically like a serve safe, like it is in restaurants. But it's just basic food handling. They want to make sure the temperatures of food, and make sure that you know what you're doing. And now there's also what is called a ship's cook certificate. It's usually by it's usually the executive chef certification of yachting. And you go through 3 days of cooking, and basically 2 days. The first day is pastry, and the second day is savory courses. So you're given basically a packet of I think 5 to 6 recipes, and you have to bang through those recipes by a certain time. Yeah, it's pretty much like a practical. And it's proctored by one guy who works out of Blue Water. And I'm actually not sure if anybody else does the ship cook other than Blue Water. I might want to look into that, or
I'll put it in the description.
Yeah. And so basically, and then it's proctored by 2 other yachting chefs who basically are tasting your food and making sure that the quality of what you're doing is up to par. And then at the end of that, you get a certificate. That class, I believe, is pretty pricey. I'm almost certain it ranges anywhere between 5 to 10,000.
Yeah.
And it's really for mega yachts, and they want to make sure that they want to see that on your CV.
Yeah.
Specifically because they want to know that you know what you're talking about. Just because you've worked in restaurants and all that stuff, they want to know that you know what you're doing.
That's fair, because when I started yachting, which was in 2010, I was doing day work, and I took over from a chef that she was a stewardess for many years, and she was even on some rock star's boat. I think it was I want to say a member of I don't even know, a member
Probably
of
Bret Hart or something.
No, it was who's anyway, some rock star, and he was going through a divorce, and they had a satellite phone and talking to the whatever. Anyway, it was a weird story, and she was like, "Oh, one day they were like, oh, do you want to just give this a shot?" Cooking. And so she became the chef, and she that was her. So she would cook out of a cookbook. That's who I took over for, at one point. But it usually, up until that point, it was, people that were trained in that, but also trained in culinary, but it was a lot of people that were just stewardesses or deckhands that are just taking a whack at it. So they had to kind of standardize things, and that's kind of when I left the industry, is when they started making sure that there was a certification for that. So that because I couldn't believe some of the people that were in they had zero. They were just deckhands that were like, okay, well, I make a really good omelet, and then bam, they're the chef. So,
So yeah, that part freaks me out a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, also like I have to hand it to these people for stepping up to being like, we can't find a chef. Can you make us,
Yeah.
can you do breakfast for the guests? Can you do lunch for the crew or whatever? So
yeah,
I can
how
see
they
where it
started.
comes in handy where people fall into place in that. But like, man, some of the horror stories that I hear, it's wild because I'm pretty OCD, and I think that just goes back to my law enforcement background. And so, I have lists for everything. I have a full calendar that I print out on a Excel, and it has every day of the week, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I mean, in the middle of these last two charters, I'm literally like switching around days, and like the chief stew was like cracking up every day because she's just like, "What's for lunch today?" I'm like, "What we're having for dinner in 3 days?" Like it was like ridiculous,
That's how you have to
and
do.
so
though,
they were
because
telling me like,
you can't have repeats.
but
Like,
not
and
everybody's
so
like that.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
and
have to
that's
have
what's
a.
scary to me is that. Sorry, go ahead. We keep.
Oh no, I'm sorry. That's my fault. I was just saying, like, you have to be organized like that because you can't have any repeats, and then you have the crew eat
Right.
very, very well, and if they're unhappy and if the captain's unhappy, then you're not going to have a job for very long. So you have to
Right.
stay organized like that.
It's so wild to me though, because some of these captains and some of these chief stews, they'll tell me like, now again, I know I've been in yachting now for 6 years, but they've been in yachting a lot longer than me. And they're telling me how like either the chef that was there before, like they wouldn't, like it would be a disaster in the galley, like it's a mess, like it was just like, or like the chief stew or a stew wouldn't be allowed in the galley. And I'm like, why? Like if you're walking through my galley, you're washing a dish or you're taking out my trash. Like you're helping me. So like you can walk through the galley as long as we're not in the middle of dinner service and I need help or you're willing to help me with something, you can come in here as often as you want. But like, it's so wild. It's so wild how there's still that kind of like hierarchy mentality of like, I'm here, you're here, don't come in here. This is not your space. It's my space. And I get it. And don't get me wrong. There are many times where I'm like, you guys got to get out. Like there's just
stop
too
the
much
chatter.
going
You got to
on
get out of
like,
here.
I need to like,
Yeah,
stop the chatter, get out. Like, but it's not every day that it's like that. And so it's just wild to me that, people telling me like how organized I am. They're like, holy crap, like, your freezers and, all this space. I'm like, well, how else am I going to be organized?
Yeah.
We're not able to use fresh proteins every day. Everything is usually frozen. So you're thawing as you're going. You're thawing as you're going. And so if it's not like organized the right way, like how am I supposed to do my job? It's just very simple, very easy to be able to not fuck up. I mean,
no, you're doing it right. Thanks for listening, guys. If you like my show, don't forget to leave a comment wherever you listen to your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to Nikki Talks Food on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, or all three. Do me the favor.